So, we've known for a while that there's going to be a 6th game in the Forza series, but we haven't known when it's going to release. Well, maybe now we do. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. As always, I am Jonathan, your host here at QuickBird Gaming, and I appreciate you tuning in for another episode of QuickBird News, where we cover all the video game news that's fit to cover from the past week. In this video, we'll be talking about the news from the 11th to the 17th of January, and just like every other week, we got a lot to talk about. So much going on in the video game industry right now. We have some Battlefield 6 news. We have some news about the little game that could. It kind of refused to die and is now blowing up. And then we have some studios that are maybe throwing good money after bad, unlike the previous game, like I said, that just was a diehard and kept going and going. These are games that maybe should be allowed to die, and studios are just continuing to keep them alive. So we'll look into all that. As always, each story is time-stamped in the description box down below, so if you're so inclined, feel free to drop down in the description box and jump to a story that interests you. Now with the preliminaries out of the way, we got to talk about Forza 6 and what may be coming down the pike. Okay, we're going to start with this article from Games Radar that was published on Wednesday, the 14th of January. Forza Horizon 6 release date seemingly leaked in Horizon 5. Xbox itself says it's coming this spring. It appears the Forza Horizon 6 release date has been preemptively revealed by an in-game advertisement in another Forza game. A pop-up in the prior installment is telling players exactly when to expect the sequel, and it's just a few months away, apparently. According to a call for pre-orders in Forza Horizon 5 posted by Xbox Infinite on Twitter, 6 is coming out on May 19th, 2026. And then it says those who pick up the premium edition can allegedly enjoy it a few days earlier on May 15th, as well as some digital goodies, etc. This spring would line up for potential plans for the 6th Forza Horizon game. It's confirmed to be part of an Xbox Developer Direct on January 22nd, where we'll see gameplay for the first time and likely get an official release date. The last game came out in November 2021. Now, I'm not a race gamer, a gamer that plays racing games, but I know the Forza series is really popular. From what I understand, when Forza Horizon 5 released on PlayStation as part of Xbox's cross-platform commitment, I believe it sold 5 million copies just on PlayStation alone. So this is quite a popular title. And as they said, we haven't had a new game for over 4 years. And over on Xbox, as this article confirmed, they are going to be talking about this game and covering it on January 22nd, which as of the posting of this video is this coming Thursday. And I'm going to be watching that and looking for news items on what's coming out. I personally am more interested in seeing news about Fable, but I'll be covering it all. I haven't decided still yet if I'm going to be live streaming it, but I will be talking about it in next week's QuickBird Gaming News. So, if you are a Forza fan, this is exciting. A new game could be out in a matter of months, and something to look forward to, right? Okay, in this week's entry in the What the Hell Man category comes this article from Video Games Chronicle from Thursday the 15th. The game literally flies. Monster Hunter Wilds reportedly runs much better on PC when all DLC is installed. One user claims that removing DLC checks can more than triple the frame rate in some areas. A Monster Hunter Wilds player may have discovered an unusual reason for the game's performance issues on PC. This player posted a lengthy message on the Monster Hunter Reddit page suggesting the game performs better when all DLC is installed. They first noticed a discrepancy when they logged into their friend's account, and the constant FPS drops they had been experiencing were suddenly gone, and the game was performing much better. Confused, they logged back into their own account and the issues returned. And so they went through this and said soon realized the only difference between their account and their friend's account was the friend owns all the DLC, whereas they only own the standard base edition. And came to the conclusion the more you owe, the better your performance better performance you get in the game due to what they allege is, quote, an aggressive DLC ownership check function. And they say, to test this, he set up 2 different accounts on the same PC, one with the game installed and nothing else, and another with all DLC bought. On the account with no DLC, I get heavy and stable FPS drops down to 2025 in hubs. With all DLC bought, it's 80 plus in hubs. Ran it the same test on another PC and got the same results. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying, if you read the rest of the article, this is obviously not a code-tested cause. And Capcom, as of the posting of this video, as near as I can tell, they have not issued a statement on this. Having said that, if this turns out to be the case, that this is what's been causing the problems in this game for the year since it released on a PC, holy shit. It was something this simple. And the user goes on, the player who found this goes on to stress that he didn't think this was malicious on Capcom's part. You know, some people are going to say that they did this to try and encourage people to buy the DLC. He didn't think so, and I'm not sure I agree with that either, because there's been no indication that Capcom has hinted that buying the DLC will fix your frame rate issues. You know, if they had been kind of subtly pushing that message, that might be different. But as near as I can tell, I haven't seen that. If you have seen it, please let me know down in the comments and source it if you can. But right now, I think this is just a case of, if this is indeed true, wow. You want to talk about crippling a game's performance, you know, sales-wise, from where I know it sold a lot of copies, but it could have done better, and it could still be doing well. You know, a lot of Capcom games have very lengthy sales trails far into their lifespan, and Monster Hunter Wilds hasn't. In fact, there was a story not too long ago where they said that it was being outsold, you know, later by Monster Hunter World because it was a more stable game on PC. So, if this is the case, damn. Okay, next up we have some Battlefield 6 news, and we're going to start with this article from Eurogamer from Wednesday the 14th. Battlefield 6 Season 2 delayed until February, but even more content for Season 1 and events are on the way. And the article said that their first season was expected to end around 20th of January, which, as of this posting, is 2 days from now. However, they have delayed it to about the 17th of February. They're going to keep the Season 1 content flowing. This is not a huge change, I don't think. I do think that some of the Battlefield 6 players who have been clamoring for larger maps and some other fixes from what I've read, and again, as not a player of this game, I'm only getting this information third hand, have been somewhat satisfied with the Season 1 content, but I think some of them feel like it hasn't been enough. So this is kind of interesting. And they say they're talking about some more things in this article that are going to be dropping. They said bonus path on the 27th, new customization, weapon package, soldier skins, you know, the typical kind of seasons that a live service shooter game is going to implement. I did find this towards the article, at the bottom of this article, I did find this interesting. And see, they kind of echo what I said here. The admittedly impatient hardcore military shooter player base has been quite vocal about hit registration issues and the need for bigger maps, even if Season 1 already delivered on that front. So, you know, it's not necessarily terrible that they're delaying this. As long as they keep the content flowing, it'll be okay. But here, to me, was the key takeaway. Needless to say, Vince Zampella's recent passing might have caused some chaos and confusion at the Battlefield studios, as he was the man tasked with leading the charge on the development of the series' future after 2042 nearly killed the franchise. And for anyone who doesn't know, Vince Zampella, a longtime developer of multiplayer team shooters, passed away, and he was killed in a car accident several weeks ago. And I'm sure this has had a big impact on Battlefield 6's development. However, this is interesting to me as I flip over to this PC Gamer article from Friday the 16th. They said with Division 3 still in the early development, series boss Julian Garrity leads Ubisoft to work on Battlefield instead. It says Ubisoft suffered a blow today as Julian Garrity, the executive producer for Division Games, the Division game, announced he is leaving the company to take a position at EA's Battlefield studio. And I'm not going to read the parts of the article that rehash this, just hear the post actually from Ubisoft. They said today we want to share that Julian Garrity, executive producer on Tom Clancy's Division franchise, is heading off to Battlefield Studios, and so on and so forth. And it says Garrity spent more than 25 years at Ubisoft before his departure. Okay, he moved to Ubisoft Massive in 2014, took on the same role as the Division. He was the creative director on the crew, which also no longer exists at Ubisoft. The Division 2 and Star Wars Outlaws. He was announced as the executive producer on the Division as a whole in 2023 when Ubisoft revealed that Division 3 is still in development. So, this is interesting because it also comes 3 days after Ubisoft announced layoffs at Ubisoft Massive after a voluntary career transition program, also known as we'll give you money to retire and get out, failed to pare the numbers back sufficiently. And it says, somewhat ironically, a rumor that Garrity had left Ubisoft began making the rounds a few months ago, which they denied is untrue. So, what can we take away from this? How is this important to the gamer? If you're a Battlefield 6 fan, I think this is a good sign, because I think even though Vince Zampella's passing, like most loss of human life, is a tragedy, and it's unfortunate, from a gamer perspective, I think that Battlefield 6 is going to continue to grind ahead. You're bringing in a leader that has a proven track record on these type of games, and was holding a similar position over at Ubisoft and has just transitioned to Battlefield 6. So for Battlefield 6 fans, I don't think this is a problem. For fans of the Division who were hoping Division 3 was going to be something good, this is going to be a massive wild card. It's going to be a massive unknown. I don't want to say a wild card. It's going to be a massive unknown as to how this is going to affect it. We don't know how far along Division 3 was in its development. If Julian Garrity was the glue holding the artistic and the developmental progress together, it's probably going to fall apart. Because I'm honestly not sure there's a whole lot of people at Ubisoft who know what the hell they're doing. And this is just another loss for Ubisoft. I mean, they're starting off 2026 right where they left off 2025, taking L after L. And I think this is unfortunate for fans of the Division series, because I think this can't help but impact that game. Even if it does end up coming out, can't help but impact the quality of it. But good news on the Battlefield 6 front. You know, it's like a lot of things in life. Depends on which side of the fence you're on, whether this is good news or bad news. I called it 2.5 months ago. This clip coming up here is from Quickbird News, number 51, posted, I think, on the 2nd of November. And we're talking about the Amazon MMO New World. And here's the clip. World will not be receiving new content updates. Servers will be live through 2026. How long will we be able to play? We will provide a minimum of 6 months notice before making any changes that impact your ability to play. If I read between the lines, it tells me they're going to announce the game servers going offline sometime next year, towards the end of 2026. Okay, so we had that clip back in November, and that brings us to this article, which was published on Friday, the 16th of January, and it's from PC Games In. Rust director makes a public $25 million offer to buy axed Amazon MMO New World because games should never die. Now, before we get to the actual thrust of that article, I want to come down here to this, where it says Amazon announced in 2025, in October, that it was halting plans. Okay, we talked about that. We saw that in the last video. And then it said this week, Amazon confirmed New World would be delisted on Thursday, January 15th, which means it's already been delisted, meaning it's been removed from sale and servers will be fully taken offline at the end of January in 2027. So I was off by a month. I said it would be around the end of 2026. And honestly, I don't think this was that hard of a call to make. I think it was pretty plain that they were setting the timeline for this game's demise. Now, this article itself is a little interesting. And it said, I read the headline. It says that Alistair McFarlane, the COO and director of Rust Dev Facepunch Studios, has made a public statement to Amazon Games suggesting he'd be prepared to pay $25 million for the rights. And down in the article it says, Rust continues to sit among Steam's most played a full decade after launch, suggesting McFarlane is likely able to back up his offhand remark of $25 million final offer at Amazon Games, which he posted on X. How sincere the offer is remains to be seen. McFarlane's post comes as a reply to Facepunch community directors Earn, who wrote, I tried to get Ali to buy New World for me, but he told me to fuck off. However, McFarlane does directly tag Amazon Games in the post and follows it up by simply stating, games should never die. Now, again, I as the article says, I don't know how sincere this is. It may be just a little bit of a flippant statement. And I sympathize with the idea that games should never die. However, throwing this kind of money after what is essentially a gaming corpse, I don't know this is a good idea. MMOs are notoriously hard to revive when they slide. Obviously games like Final Fantasy are the exception, but 14, yeah, they are the exception, but a lot of them just taper off into mediocrity or death. and I don't think New Worlds is going to be any exception. So I just thought this was interesting, and we'll see what happens with it. I don't expect anything, I don't expect any kind of strong results out of this. But as a callback to a previous video, and unfortunately for people who do enjoy New World, your time is on the clock now, and to me, that's probably the worst thing about this story. Well, I talked about the little game that refused to die, and I was referring to the game Hytale. And I want to look at this IGN article from Monday, the 12th of January, and just celebrate its success, because the title says Hytale isn't even out yet, and it's already made enough money to cover the next 2 years of development costs. Minecraft-style sandbox game Hytale looks to be a significant hit even at this early access stage. Its developer said Hytale has already made enough money to cover 2 years of development. And the article goes down here and talk about the standard editions and so on and so forth. If you remember what happened, I've talked about Hytale in the past. This is a game that had been kind of in development hell for a long time, and it belonged to, I want to say, Riot Games for a while. Yeah, it says down here in the article. You see, it was announced on December 2018, okay, with the trailer, and here's the blurb, and etc. Excitement was fueled by the experience of the developers themselves, who co-founded Hypixel, one of the most influential Minecraft servers in the world. In November, League of Legends developer Riot Games confirmed it had sold the rights to Hytale back to Collins Laflamme after it had acquired the game in 2020. Okay, and it had been stagnating despite its sale to Riot, but Collins Laflamme set out to resurrect the dying IP, confirming he had rehired scores of developers who had worked on it. And he says 4 years, and he was upset about this. He said 4 years in engineering went into rebuilding the engine rather than gameplay features, and so on and so forth. And he talks a little bit more about that, but now it looks like things are going great. Now, I was not able to find official player numbers anywhere, at least not by making this video, not a reliable estimate. But I did find this, which is significant, and this comes from Gosu Gamers. This was posted on Tuesday, the 13th. Hytale becomes the most watched game on Twitch following its early access launch. It accumulated 420,000 concurrent viewers on Twitch, skyrocketing to become the most watched game on the live streaming platform at over 400,000 viewers around 12 hours ago. You're not doing well you can't say a game's not doing well when it has almost 500,000 people watching it on Twitch. So to me, this is a success story. It's awesome for these guys. This gentleman, Collins Laflamme, Simon Collins Laflamme, there's his name. He clawed this back. He sold the IP. It stagnated. He clawed it back, and now he's making it work. So good on him. This is this kind of story I love in the games industry. And if you like Minecraft, maybe go check out Hytale. It might fit and be something else to try for a little while. Now, see, coming on the heels of talking about Hytale, a game that's exceeding expectations, we have this story about a game that ain't. And this is from Insider Gaming from Thursday, on the 15th of January. And it says, New Life is Strange game to be revealed next week. In a post on social media, the teams at Deck 9 and Square Enix announced the impending reveal of a new Life is Strange game. Just days ago, it was discovered on a rating site that this game will be titled Life is Strange Reunion, though posts on socials continue to debunk that, but okay, who cares? If you're unfamiliar with the Life is Strange games, they're kind of a walking simulator that are just packed with teenage type of angst and trauma, and put yourself in the shoes of this young person that's going through a lot. In full disclosure, I've only played the first one. I played all 5 chapters of it. It was okay. It was nothing I needed to repeat. But I haven't played any subsequent ones. However, I know that the series is not doing well, which is why it to me, it's interesting that they are greenlighting further games. I'm just going to go to the last one in the series, Life is Strange Double Exposure, which I want to say was released. It was released in October of 2024. And this is the Steam database. And you can look at the numbers of people playing it. It only got 8,500 players max on Steam. And I mean, it's got 100 people playing right now. And this is a game that's a year and a half old. And this was their last game. You can see it's got about a 2 out of 3 a positive review over on Steam. We'll go look at the reviews on Steam. As I scroll down, you can look at the top reviews, and yeah, a lot of red. Inauthentic and awkward. This one tries too hard to be relevant, memey, and relatable. If you've ever heard the term millennial writing, I think that's what they're saying here. I got more confused into this game the more I got into it. It's not Life is Strange anymore. The plot was absurd, not relatable, and lazy as hell. Now, obviously, some people are rating it well, but, I mean, the common theme when you read the negative comments is that it was lazy and try hard. And so the last entry in this series didn't go all that great. And then you have this article back from last March from Game Rant. Square Enix suffered large losses from Life is Strange Double Exposure. And they said this game suffered large losses. And Deck 9, the developer who made Double Exposure, laid off a whole bunch of people in December in 2024, 2 months or a month or two after the game launched. Square Enix is not doing that great, at least according to them. They talk about things like Final Fantasy 16 underperformed. They've been divesting themselves of studios in North America, yet they're going to greenlight another game in a series that has been getting successively worse and worse performing over time by a studio that's already laying off people. I don't get it. I don't understand. And the only thing I can figure is that maybe the production cost of these games are extremely low. But even if that's the case, they still say they lost money on the last one. So who the hell knows? Kind of on the same lines as the last article or last story I covered is this IGN article from Tuesday, January 13th. It says, new Hellblade that's more of a game reportedly in the works. Ninja Theory no longer working on Project Mara. And it says Xbox studio Ninja Theory is working on a third major Hellblade game, a new report has suggested, this time with more interactive elements. 2 Hellblade titles have been released to date, featuring the Celtic warrior Senua and battles against monsters in her own mental health. Both have widely been praised for their visuals and story, though they have also caught flack for prioritizing cinematography over gameplay. A new third Hellblade title in development at Ninja Theory will respond to that criticism by focusing on being more of a game, according to Windows Central Editor Jez Corden, speaking on the Xbox 2 podcast. Now, along the same lines, again, if you're unfamiliar with the Hellblade series, they are exactly that. They are about a Celtic warrior who's going through a lot of mental issues, and the whole game is kind of almost like an acid trip set in, medieval, Ireland or Scotland. And it really is striking. Great voice acting, great cinematography, great motion capture, but the gameplay elements are skosh. You could finish the first game getting, all of the collectibles and everything in a couple of hours, and that's taking your time. It was $30 at release. The second one came out in May of 2024, I believe, was $50, and I heard people saying you could complete it in 3 or 4 hours. And now these people are working on a third one. Now, Ninja Theory has had some hits in the past. I mean, they did very well, I think, with the Devil May Cry a soft reboot back in 2013. And I think that was pretty well received. At the same time, they released a game called Enslaved Odyssey to the West, which, in my opinion, is criminally underrated. It should have gotten a lot more attention, and it's a game worth checking out if you like kind of action-adventure fighting games. Again, has some great motion capture, cinematography, and voice acting in it, and it has a lot of good gameplay elements. But they haven't done a whole lot since then. In the last 10 years, they've released a couple of Hellblade games. They've released a MOBA game and a fighting game, none of which have done shit. But they're still being allowed to work on a third one. I could not find solid sales data for Hellblade 2 and how well it did. A game released on Game Pass, and I think that's where it got a lot of its play. I did see this article that actually just released today saying PS5 failure. Why did Hellblade 2 sell only 50,000 copies while Forza 5 sold 5 million? It's kind of coincidental. We talked about Forza 5 at the opening of this video, and this talks about the differences. And this article is about how some Xbox games are not resonating on PlayStation. And obviously, I said Forza had sold 5 million, but see right here, 50,000 copies it sold over there on PlayStation. Now, I lost the article. I tried to re-find it, but it was an article from 2024, and I think before the sales from Hellblade 2 had come in, that said that Ninja Theory was basically surviving on an infusion from their parent company, i.e. Microsoft. They had not sustained enough profit up to that point, in recent times to be self-sufficient. So here we have another studio that's maybe not making good selling games. It's being greenlit for a third one. A third time, I'll say that maybe they're keeping the production cost way down and that's how they're justifying it. But I am just not understanding these studios being greenlit for projects when they are not producing for years. They are not producing, profit, able to stand up and show profitability. Maybe they are behind the scenes and they're not saying it publicly. But with all the game companies, all the dev companies that are collapsing, games, franchises that we're losing, and games that are being shut down, these decisions, sure, they strike me as very odd. And I can't be the only one. Okay, now we're going to look at this Game Rant article from Wednesday, the 14th. It says, former Bioware producer lays out 10 million plan that could bring Anthem...
Stop! He's already dead.
Look, I don't make any secret of the fact that I think games are for gamers, and I hate seeing games go offline because I want gamers to enjoy what they want to play. But in this case, I really have to wonder if this is just wishful thinking. And it kind of is. Former Bioware executive producer Mark Dara has proposed a bold $10 billion plan to revive Anthem as a fully single-player RPG. The idea comes just days after they officially shut down the servers, which happened this week. It's done. It's gone. And this goes in and talks a little bit about how it was shut down. For those of you who don't remember, Anthem was released as a live service multiplayer shooter back in 2019. Pretty much tanked. CEO Andrew Wilson said at one point they expected 6 million sales within the first month. I think it had 5 million in its total lifetime. So I almost certainly, EA hasn't disclosed their internal numbers, but it almost certainly had to be a financial loss. Then you have, I don't want to get too much into this, but in a video, Dara laid out a 3-plays fan for a single-player review of the game, estimated cost of about $10 million. Upgrading the technical framework for current consoles, next-gen consoles, PS5 and Switch 2, target lock to 60 FPS, enhanced visuals. They also would have to create the AI for your squad and teammates in the game if it was going to be a single-player game. And he says, to replace the original 4-player requirement, offering a true BioWare-style experience centering on the sort of narrative depth and companion dynamics that fans love. It's very true. That's what a lot of people loved about old BioWare games. But those games, by and large, really don't exist at BioWare anymore. The closest they've come was Dragon Age Veilguard, and that in itself did not do very well. The closest they've come recently, I should say. More than just a technical overhaul, Dara framed this as a revival as a way to finally deliver the single-player RPG fans expected all along. He used the video to support the broader Stop Killing Games movement, argues publishers should be required to preserve games in at least some playable form. While he acknowledged that EA is unlikely to pursue it, he believes Anthem's best chance in survival lies in reimagining it for the players it was originally meant to serve. I think the Stop Killing Games aspect of this would be allow people to run their own servers offline. Just say, we're washing our hands of the code. Here it is. You can take it, set up your own servers, run it with your friends, and so on and so forth. And that would be to allow people to run their own servers and let the game exist as it is. And you see, and then they go on and talk about this a little further. He says, Dara argues the game could find new life, offering a redemptive arc similar to titles like No Man's Sky or Cyberpunk 2077 that overcame rocky launches. You know, those are the two examples I always use of games that redeem themselves. Why? Because they're rare. Most games, by and large, do not redeem themselves. I couldn't find solid numbers on where Anthem's player count was before it shut down, but I saw a lot of estimates saying 300 to 800 players daily. Okay, not awful, but No Man's Sky, as of right now, is still racking in, 10 to 15,000 players a day. It hit a peak of over 100,000 less than a year ago when it had new content coming out. Cyberpunk still consistently hitting 30 to 50,000 players and has been doing so for at least a year. I mean, you're comparing apples and oranges here, Mark. I don't think these games are the same. Now, while I appreciate the drive behind this, and I think it's an intriguing concept, I'm not sure you'd get this for $10 million. He's the expert, and he may have better insight than I do. Almost certainly does. I've seen too many games suffer developmental bloat to believe that anybody comes in on or under budget. It just is just not the norm. So I think that you'd end up with more than this. And worse than this, there's just no will for this. Especially with EA just having been sold off to a conglomerate that's going to want to turn profit on things fast. I unfortunately just don't see this happening. Clever idea, but I think Anthem is pretty much buried and is going to stay that way. Okay, I have already made this video way too long, and I have dragged it out, and I had to cut some stories. But I want to finish up with this as kind of a positive from PC Games In, and this is from Tuesday, the 13th. GOG's new owner says DRM makes life more difficult for customs, and so he sees no reason to keep it alive. Michael Kaczynski, who was a co-founder and joint CEO of CDPR, including 2008 when it launched GOG, after parting ways with the company in 2011, he's reacquired the storefront to challenge Steam's hegemony. Good luck. And to commit to providing players with DRM-free games to have them play any place, anytime. And it talks a little bit about how, even in CDPR, Witcher 3 was a commitment to anti-DRM stance. And this is what Kaczynski says. Since the very beginning, we haven't seen DRM as a solution for piracy because the games get pirated anyway nearly day one. He tells GamesIndustry.biz in an interview, we see DRM as something which can make the life of a legal customer more difficult. The only reason to keep it alive can be to please the owners of the games because that's their requirement quite often. Now, I'm not sure I agree with the first part. I think DRM has actually become incredibly difficult to crack and games to pirate now. I think systems like Denuvo, I don't want to say they're completely uncrackable because there's no such thing, but I believe the time to do it is a lot longer than it was, say, even 6 or 7 years ago. And the people that were doing it, a lot of them have fallen by the wayside. So I don't think games always get pirated quite as easily as he says here. However, the second part of his statement I 100% agree with. DRM can make the life of the legal customer more difficult, and it is done to please stockholders, shareholders more than anything. He said, okay, let's see, scroll down here. For the future, GOG is unsurprisingly doubling down on its principle. This is a core value of good old games, and there's no sign it might die in any visible future. This is not only an ethical value, but it's very pragmatic. It helps people to enjoy games no matter what happens with the software provided by the platform or what internet connection they have. Good old games is very much for giving you your launcher, and you can launch it anytime, anywhere once you've paid for the game. You don't have to stay connected to the internet. There's no digital rights management. They're very much for the players in this sense. And I'm here for it. I 100% agree with this stance. Gabe Newell of Steam himself has pointed out that piracy is not a price problem. It's generally a service problem. And I think that is true. I myself know people who were, and this is not me, but I do know people who were committed pirates who have pretty much given it up when games come on sale on Steam for a couple bucks, and it's just easier to download them than to try and fuss with it. it is interesting that we see in a time when when developers, especially the AAA types, are moving more and more to trying to make games as a live service. Microsoft would love for everybody to be on cloud gaming exclusively. That way they have complete and total control of what you're doing, and, can cut you off at the drop of a hat or restrict you or whatever else if you're spending too much time on the platform. For your own good, they would say, but for really because you're spending too much bandwidth. It's refreshing to see some people still committed to the idea that gamers can own their own games. Now, I understand this is digital and not physical. Physical media is always going to be kind of the top tier. But being able to own your own game without any digital rights management or internet requirement, even if you have to store the install files on a portable hard drive, is a close second. And I am enjoying the fact that, Good Old Games is continuing to commit to this idea. Okay, I am going to leave this one here. I actually had more stories I wanted to talk about, but I have run out of time, and I like to babble and get my opinion in with the news, so it does run a little long. Thank you all for being patient. I appreciate you all coming to this episode of Quick Bird News. If you did enjoy this content, please consider doing the YouTube stuff. Leave a like on the video if you agreed with anything I said or disagreed, or if you think I missed a major story in the gaming world this week. Leave a comment down below and let me know any of those. I do read all comments. I try to respond to as many of them as I can, and I appreciate that interaction. And finally, I would love to have your subscription. It just takes one click, and it helps me out a whole bunch. Okay, that's enough out of me for the week. I will be back next week with more Quick Bird News, and I will see you then. So until then, thank you for tuning in. You all go out there, live your best lives, and you all stay gaming.